Syracuse Sports rolling along once again. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brent Axe. Great to have you here. I hope you're subscribing on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a darn thing. And we've been cranking them out this week. We had Patrick Stevens earlier this week, USA Lacrosse Magazine, one of the best minds out there on the sport. So we have that. Today we have Quint Kessenich. Also, I would put in the category of some of the great minds in lacrosse. And I figured we might as well complete the trifecta. We had Anish Shroff on a couple weeks ago. We had Paul Carcaterra on the pod recently. And the third member of the championship booth that will be calling the Final Four, Syracuse, Maryland, and Penn State, Cornell, Quint Kessenich, one of the best lacrosse announcers out there, one of the best minds on the sport out there. And you're going to get some terrific insight from Quint on both Syracuse, Maryland, and Cornell, Penn State, and the state of the game as well. I think Quint had some great thoughts to share about where the sport is, where it can go, and what it can be. No better person to turn to for that than Quint Kessenich. So we will get to that coming up here shortly. But I was thinking about a few things before Syracuse takes on Maryland. And by the way, how great is this? I love talking lacrosse. I will talk lacrosse every single day. And I do talk lacrosse every single day, kind of off air, if you will. But I love that lacrosse is getting its shine here. And our Syracuse Sports Insiders certainly appreciate that too. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you have direct text message access to me anytime. What I love about the conversation we're having with the Syracuse Sports Insiders right now is, let's face it, if you've been watching the pod, we've had Chris Carlson on a few times, and he refers to himself as Memorial Day Chris, right? He's a lacrosse fan that drops in when Syracuse makes it far, when they make it to the Final Four. I think there's a lot of Syracuse fans out there that are in the same category. Maybe they're not diehard lacrosse fans, but they appreciate and know that Syracuse has a rich history. When it's Memorial Day weekend, they'll drop back in. Well, it's been 12 years since Syracuse has been in Memorial Day weekend in the Final Four. So I think you're getting a swell of Syracuse sports fans that maybe aren't experts on the sport. So I've really enjoyed the conversation with the Syracuse sports fans. Like, what's this all about? I kind of watch lacrosse. So no matter what level of lacrosse you're on, love having those conversations with you. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Get on board, baby. It's just $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse Sports Insider, where you get breaking news first. You get my thoughts, inside analysis, and opinions first. And you can just shoot me a text, shoot the breeze. Hey, Brent, let's talk sports. That's what I'm here for, baby. You can try it free for 2 weeks before that, and the info right there on your screen. But it's joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports to sign up. So I've been talking about some of this with our insiders, and I've been thinking about it this week. There's three things that I've got in mind here going into the Syracuse Maryland game. One is, are they just happy to be here? The thought, the predictions, the hype surrounding this program has not been win a national championship, right? The thought was, and I wrote this column at the beginning of the season back in January, believe it or not, was this is a team that is built for and can get back to the Final Four. What I did not say is this is a team built for and that can win the national championship, although they certainly can. But you got to get to the Final Four first. The Final Four was the standard. I thought putting the pressure on a team that you've got to win a national championship is a little too much when you have not been in the Final Four. There's a progression. There's a buildup here. So is that what's on their minds here? The satisfaction of getting back to championship weekend. Will it take the pressure off them to play freely and win 2 more games? You still have to do it Saturday and Monday to win a championship. But for so many, I think there's this collective feeling as if they've already won something, where you look at a program like Maryland that Syracuse is playing in this game. This is nothing to them. Maryland has been to Final Fours. They've been to championship weekend. John Tillman is the standard and has set the standard in the sport. Maryland won the national championship 2 years ago. They got trucked last year by Notre Dame, a little bit of humble pie there, but there's a reason that Maryland sits on top of the sport right now. They are the standard. This is nothing to them. This is just, pass, go, collect $200. We've been there. We've done that. For Syracuse, the players on this team, they have not been there and done that. So how do they settle down? Will Gary Gait's real strict blinders, one game at a time approach help in that sense? Don't worry about championships. Don't worry about anything else but Maryland, right? But still, that's a hard thing to shake. Are we just happy to be here? We made the Final Four and already felt like we accomplished something, or will the hunger and drive be there, as simple as this sounds, to win 2 more games and win a championship? The second thing I'm really thinking about is the contrast of styles in this game. And Quint and I are going to talk about this, and Patrick Stevens. I was talking to Patrick after we recorded our pod yesterday, and he made a spectacular point when he said, I'd feel better about picking Syracuse in this game if it was Monday. There's a short turnaround between the Saturday games and the Monday 1 p.m. championship game. You give Maryland a week to get ready for anybody, and the odds are they're going to win that game. Now, it's not that Syracuse won't have some tricks up their sleeve. Gary Gait was saying on a media call this week that Pat March is tweaking the offense, and Syracuse is certainly going to have to do that. But Syracuse is most comfortable in a game like we saw last week. Princeton, 19-18. Syracuse wants to run and gun. They want to get up and down the field. There is comfort in the chaos for Syracuse when they get to push the ball. Maryland is a team that will test your patience. They will grind you. They will wait for you to make a mistake. They will pounce on that mistake, and they will make you pay for it. They will grind the clock if they have to. Maryland can get up and run if they need to, but they also have a goalie in Logan McNaney, a 6th-year goaltender, the best goalie in college lacrosse, who eats up bad shots. So Syracuse is going to be challenged in the mental game. Can you work the ball and take good shots? Can you be patient? Can you be a team that can just beat Maryland straight up 6-on-6? You're going to hear some insight from Quint coming up on this, but there's not going to be a lot of breaks for Syracuse. So the face-off has been critical all year. John Mullen is the best face-off specialist in the country. And that, as they like to call it in lacrosse, that make it, take it game. Can you win face-offs and get Maryland in unsettled situations? It's very hard to do that. So Syracuse is just going to have to capitalize on so many of those opportunities. And let's face it, this has been a team that has not started off well pretty much all year. The first quarter has been an issue. It has been a bugaboo for this team. It's like a car in a central New York winter. You're waiting for the heat to kick in, right? Syracuse cannot be that against Maryland. The sooner you let Maryland get their grips into you and take control of the game, the worse off you're going to be. So can Syracuse make Maryland chase them a little bit more? That contrast of styles, who grabs control of the game, because once Maryland does, it is so hard to get it back from them. And the third thing is Joey Spallina. It's hard not to think about the legacy of the 22. You know, when you think about the Gates and you think about the Lockwoods, Dan Hardy won 2 championships as a 22. Cody Jamieson won a championship at Syracuse, was a 22 at Syracuse. That is the last step for Spallina, who's got another year here at Syracuse and is going to set all kinds of scoring records, and already has in some sense. But you're not a true 22. You don't have that legacy until you win a championship at Syracuse. That's it, plain and simple. And that is nothing against Spallina. And I will take this moment to say the discourse on Joey Spallina, on whatever you want to call it, lacrosse, Twitter, social media, in real life, wherever it was, has been absolute bunk. It has been some of the dumbest discourse I have ever seen in the sport. And it's not a large contingent, but it's a loud enough contingent. And it's one that Joey certainly noticed. I'm sure you saw his salty post-game interview last week. Like, I thought I couldn't dodge people, and just, it's jealousy, plain and simple. It is jealousy. It is pettiness. And all Joey has done is prove these people wrong. And there's no going back now. So all the look, if Joey gets contained by Maryland, it doesn't have a 22-like performance, and that is the pressure that comes with that number, the haters will be back out there, and social media is what it is these days. But I've never bought into it, and I think that some minority voices got amplified, and that can happen in the echo chambers of social media. Joey Spallina is one of the best players in the country. He's not a Tour-a-thon candidate this year. He certainly should be next year. But it's fair to say the legacy of a 22 is not complete until you win a championship. And that window is open now. Can Syracuse pounce on it? And can Spallina lead the way? It's not to say that others on this team are not going to contribute. Okay, that is a terrific attack. Finn Thompson is back. Owen Hiltz has been as productive a player in Syracuse history as the scoring streak record, beating John Zilberti's scoring streak record at Syracuse. Peyton Anderson, and Syracuse is 10-0 when Peyton Anderson scores a goal. Trey Deer's been fantastic on man up. Sam English is one of the best two-way players in the country. Luke Roa and Michael Leo can dodge and rip shots with the best of them. I know I'm focusing on offensive players here. The defense is going to be critical. How about Jimmy McCool? One thing that Jimmy McCool always has when he comes to a post-game press conference, and I think in every conversation I've had with him, is a Red Sox hat on. How big would it be for Jimmy McCool to be a key contributor to a Syracuse championship run in Foxborough, in the shadows of Boston? Carter Rice is from Massachusetts, as is, there's one guy I'm forgetting that's a Massachusetts guy for Syracuse. I'll look it up while we're yapping about it here. But how cool would it be for those guys? I mean, Syracuse will recruit anywhere and they'll play anyone. But if you can win a championship and be a part of it close to home, John Mullen is another guy. John Mullen, Carter Rice, Jimmy McCool, all Massachusetts guys. How great would that be for them? So there's a lot of storylines, and it's going to take contributions from everywhere. Riley Figueres is going to have to be a shutdown defender. Billy Dwan is going to have to do his thing. Everybody's going to have to contribute. But I have a feeling that the conversation about whether Syracuse is successful or not only against Maryland, but all weekend long, is going to point at number 22. And the opportunity is there for Joey to truly enter rarefied air. He already has in terms of points, in stats, and stature. But man, if you can help drive Syracuse not only to a national championship, but even just back to the national championship game, it goes back to what I said at the beginning here. The Final Four can't be the prize. You still have 2 more wins to get in Foxborough this weekend. Quint Kessenich, ESPN, is going to tell us all about that coming up here. But as you guys know, we love to feature your original music here on Syracuse Sports. We've had some terrific artists as of late. And boy, the one we have today, they've got a Dave Matthews vibe. They've got a Fish vibe. They've got all kinds of vibes going. That's the word I think of when I listen to this band called Pop Culture. Vibes. Different instruments blending here. And I think you're really going to dig Pop Culture. This is a song called Sorry Jose. So what we do is we feature a little bit of the song here before we introduce our guest, and then we'll play Sorry Jose from Pop Culture in its entirety at the end of the podcast. And man, it's a vibe. I think you guys are going to dig it. If you want your original music, you know somebody that's in a band, please send us your original music to be featured here on Syracuse Sports. We certainly have a lot of artists that have ties to Central New York, but you do not have to be from Syracuse or Central New York to have your music featured here. Pardon me. We take on all comers in all formats. By the way, I'd love to get different kinds of music going here. I mean, Uncle Brent kind of has a tell, and I have a certain type of music that I listen to and that I like, but trust me, we're open to all formats here. So please, you'll see it in the show notes on how you can get in touch to have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports. So let's listen to a little bit of Sorry Jose from Pop Culture, and then we'll listen to Quint Kessenich break down Syracuse and Maryland in the Final Four.
Gonna blow and the sails are coming and the tides are low. Who knows where the wind is gonna go? Can't see nothing and they're moving in slow. Got a feeling that the truth is near, and the pair to my left is a breeze in my ear. True living is a thing that we take for granted, my friend. Sorry, Jose.
Quint is here, who will try to get a word in edgewise in that booth with Anish Shroff and Paul Carcaterra. Of course, Dana Boyle on the coverage as well for Syracuse, Maryland, Cornell, Penn State, the Final Four upcoming here. Quint, God bless you. We love Carc. He was on the pod last week, and I'll tell you what, I want to thank Carc a little bit because you've been in that press box at Hofstra. We had the monitors, but we didn't have audio, but it didn't matter because we could hear Carc saying everything he had to say in that booth one way or the other. So it was beautiful. It all mixed well.
There are many challenges to broadcasting championship weekend. I find with our amazing camera complement and our audio and our access with a reporter downstairs that we generally have to do less. And so after doing some of these shows during the regular season where you feel you're almost doing a podcast, in the championship weekend, we got to talk less. So the challenge for me has always been to boil it down, to do less, but do it better. Now, you throw Kark in the mix. My challenge with Kark is he's always at a 10 volume wise. I mean, that guy, he grew up in a family, he's the youngest boy. So to talk at the dinner table, he had to elevate his voice. And I think that carries over into the booth. I come from a similarly big family, but for some reason, it's like when you want to get someone's attention, in my family, you whispered. And and,
Oh,
and, and
okay.
and so I'll have to modulate my energy level so I don't seem like I'm like a zombie compared to Kark, who's always, throwing his hands around and out of 10. So that's my challenge internally.
I was going to say too, do you wear shoulder pads in the booth? Because Kark loves to
No,
grab
we
people.
we
Yeah.
bump. We do a lot of demos up there, and I find that
Yeah.
when we're doing demos, although the fans can't see it, our explanations generally become more colorful. They generally become more descriptive, and so we do that during the course of a game.
All right, I'm just giving a free idea to the producers here. I just want a booth cam, and you could see the three of you guys. Just the dynamic is incredible. But you guys have been doing this for a while now. But it's been a while since Syracuse has been there, Quint, and that's what I wanted to start with here. What does it mean that Syracuse lacrosse is back in the Final Four for the
It,
sport?
it it means a lot. I mean, when I started broadcasting this event, it was like the Syracuse Invitational, obviously, and every year the expectation was they get there, and they did, and they usually delivered. And now after this drought, it just feels different. Like I think lacrosse overall, the bar has been raised, and so getting to championship weekend has never been more difficult than it is right now. So back in the day, it was Syracuse showed up and played well, they got there. Well, nowadays you need to have a really good team and play really well, especially late in the season. So this is a great accomplishment. They're basically on par. They could have made it last year. They lost that quarterfinal game to Denver when their offense came up a little short. But I think Gary Gait's done a wonderful job at recruiting and then developing this team. This team's gone from, in my eyes, a team who at critical moments kind of were their own worst enemy at times this
Yeah.
season. And in the last couple games, they've ironed that out and they haven't beaten themselves late in games and they've learned to win. And I'm very impressed with that. The fact that they have, learned from those mistakes along the way and they're playing a really good brand of ball right now.
It's been a steady rise for Syracuse under Gary Gait. They had that first losing season and they barely missed the tournament. You mentioned it, the loss to Denver, and now back in the Final Four here. And you can use a lot of words to describe Gary Gait, but when I look at him as a coach, Quint, the word that comes to mind for me is trust. You watch that sideline. He lets John O'Derna run the defense. He lets Pat March run that offense. I mean, he'll certainly poke his head in the huddles, and he's a head coach, and he's going to do his thing. But I don't think there's a coach in the country that's more hands-off in a way than Gary Gait. I mean that as a compliment. Like, he trusts his guys to do their thing.
He's a fascinating person. I mean, competing against him, he was almost like robotic in his lack of emotion, and we would do everything to physically, mentally, to try to get under his skin.
Right.
Never a reaction. He took more cheap shots as a player than any player I've ever seen. We became neighbors after college in Baltimore. We played together club lacrosse for 4 or 5 years. We were teammates. We were teammates for the Baltimore Thunder for a year as well. And I'd end up covering him in practice quite a bit, which was scary. But he's I just have always gotten along so well with him. He's very easygoing. He's wonderful to be around. He can be a colorful storyteller if you prod him, but he's not going to go there without your prodding. He's never talking about himself or the old days. He's got an eye for talent. He is a player's coach, and that he's going to give you the leeway to go out and be the best playmaker you can be given your skill set. And I think he lets guys fail, and then he kind of can go back and say, okay, your game is tailored to this, so stay in your lane. And I think that's what you're seeing from this team. I think early in the season maybe he gave him some leeway. You had bad shot selection, you had penalties at the end of games. They learned from it. That's typical Gary. And now they're putting it all together. But I love the interactions. He's very secure in who he is. He's very secure in the hires that he's made, and I think he's pretty secure in some of the talent that he's brought in.
Quint, you look around the Final Four, every team's got a star that stands out. And of course, Syracuse is Joey Spallina. Not that there aren't other stars on this team, and anybody in any time can drop 4 or 5 points on you. And there's a number of names on that list. But when you wear the 22, and with all the attention that Joey's had on him since the minute he walked on campus, this is his moment now, right? And you know as well as anybody, the 22, in order to close the loop on that legacy, you got to win a championship. So here's Joey on the cusp of this. I'm just curious, what your view has been of Joey's rise to this point and what he has done for this team, including right back to that Princeton game where he drops 8 points and kind of shut up the haters a little bit.
He did. And for whatever reason, he's always been a polarizing player. I don't know if that's because of the gaudy points he put up on Long Island, because who his dad is, because he's welcomed the 22 jersey and kind of been upfront to saying like his mission is to get Syracuse back to championship weekend and win a championship. But he's taken that on. He didn't have to. He didn't have to take that on. And I respect him for taking that on, because nowadays it seems like some of these young athletes would eschew that type of responsibility and that pressure. So I have tremendous respect for him as a competitor. Okay. He's an elite passer. I mean, top 1% you'll see in college lacrosse. He is an amazing shooter, especially from mid-range. But his game instincts stand out to me. You could put him on a pro field tomorrow, and you wouldn't notice that is a college kid. His IQ, his instincts, his ability to see player movement, his ability to get everybody involved, it's really next level. He's an amazing player. Look, he's not the fastest guy in the world, and people have been critical of his dodging and his ability to beat his man, as I have. That's the least part of his game, but there's so many good parts of his game that overshadow that make that really a kind of a non-factor when you look at what he can do on a Saturday.
Quint, you must love the fact that one of the big stars in the Final Four the past few years has been a goaltender. Go back to when Liam Entenmann was at Notre Dame, and now you got Logan McNaney coming in, the 6-year guy, and you look around at Spallina at Syracuse, CJ Kurson, Ryan Goldstein at Cornell, and Matt Trainer at Penn State. There's a lot of great offensive players in this Final Four, but McNaney is the standout for Maryland here. And that matchup, Joey versus Logan, anybody on the offensive side that you want to say facing a goaltender like this, it reminds me of hockey, certainly, but it's a unique thing in lacrosse. Like we saw last weekend, a 19-18 game, right? And you just feel like the goalies get lost in the mix, but Jimmy McCool's got to make huge saves in that game, and every goalie's got to step up even when there's a flurry of goals. What's the dynamic, though, that Logan McNaney brings that, Maryland's a team that hasn't scored more than 14 goals all year. They like to play a certain way, as we'll get into here, and he is such a big part of that.
Calm, patience, poise, minimal movement between the pipes. This is not a goalie. Like McCool, they're very different styles. Jimmy's more of a flopper. He's more of a mover. He's a big goalie. Logan's a Corning native. He's a 6-year senior right now. When he's been the starter, Maryland has advanced to championship weekend every time. I spent a day with him for that ESPN Plus Game On feature that you can see. And I was just amazed at his poise and his maturity. He's like a flatliner, man. Like, there's some goalies, who live and die in the moment, who can rise to great heights, and sometimes, they'll have their great games, but they're also going to have a subpar game. Logan's really not that way. He is steady Eddie. He's listed at 5'10". He's shorter than I am, but man, he is so patient. He waits on shots, and I think his superpower, honestly, his eyesight and his top hand, because at the last minute, whap, he moves that stick and makes saves. He's not a dynamic mover with the body like a Jimmy McCool and like some other goalies. Frasian of Penn State is a great mover. Anderson Moore of Georgetown's a great mover. Logan is much more subdued in the net. His angle play is perfect, and he's generally ready for shots. He's never caught behind the play, and those are his strengths.
Quint, we talked about what Gary Gait's done at Syracuse. John Tillman has done something incredible here at Maryland. And look, when they get through the Final Four, they typically win. His record in the quarterfinals speaks for itself for this team. You mentioned McNaney's record when he's a starter and the success that they've had. How has John Tillman done this? And kind of with Maryland, it's not sexy. It's something, I'm trying to make a comparison out there. But
it's two tight end football with a fullback and a tailback, and they're going to hand the ball off 30 times. They're going to punt 8 times, play field position, and beat you 21-16.
There you go. That's a great way to put it.
They just don't make mistakes. he's done an amazing job. From recruiting to the portal this year, they have some key portal pickups running midfield for them. It's a defensive based team. They win the restarts, they win the inches, so to speak. And when you make mistakes, they capitalize. They're willing to play long, slow possessions, almost pre-shot clock lacrosse. They'd rather roll the ball into the corner than take a bad shot that Jimmy McCool's going to save, and then they're going to get a run out. They don't ride. The attack drops to the midfield line, the middies sub off, and they want to get their defensive personnel on. So it's going to be difficult and key for Syracuse to score in transition and non 6-on-6 ways. If this game is standard, the American Revolutionary War, like the British lined up in their red coats, okay, that's Maryland. If you're going to beat the British, you got to take this into the forest. You got to put a little jungle warfare. You got to do something to throw them out of their rhythm, because they're very comfortable playing that really kind of slow down half court game. But with Coach Tillman's changed their culture in the last decade plus. They're a hardworking team. They have really impressive athletes when you see them in person. They're big, strong, fast. They're tough, and they got this mental. They got this mental, like, this ability to focus and stay disciplined for 60 minutes.
Quint, when you look at this matchup in particular, those are the styles of each team. What are some of the individual matchups that are starting to pop out to you? And one thing that jumps out to me generally is a big bugaboo for Syracuse all year has been that first quarter. They have struggled out of the gate. And this is a team you cannot struggle out of the gate. The sooner Maryland gets their clamps on this game, the more frustrating it's going to get for Syracuse. So I've said it a lot this year, but I think I really mean it this time. Syracuse cannot start slow in this one, or Maryland's just going to jump on them.
That's a very valid point, Brent, because if you let Maryland get in front and they control tempo and slow this thing down, a comeback is very difficult. So start fast. And that, to me, starts with Johnny Mullen. If there's a potential advantage in this game for Syracuse in a way they can play make it, take it, or a way they can push tempo, it's by winning faceoffs. And so Maryland has always done a nice job in the specialty departments, faceoffs and goaltending and extra man and man down. That's an area that Syracuse is going to need here. Mullen's got to get to 60+%, maybe get some goals right off those faceoffs before the Maryland defense is set. And I think they have an advantage. Look, the Terps lost Luke Weirman last year, led them to championship. They've got a bunch of Fogos. You'll see 3 or 4 different guys. None of them I have huge confidence in. And the Terps have been happy to get to 50%. But Johnny Mullen, the sophomore, can be a hero for Syracuse.
Looking at the other matchup, Quint, the Jeff Tambroni Bowl. It's been a while since Jeff's been at Cornell, but kind of rings a little bit because he was in that national championship game as the coach in 2009. He's trying to get Penn State there in the national championship game for the first time. He didn't cross paths with Connor Busick, but I just kind of like the beauty of this coming around. And as much as the game has grown, it's still a small community. Everybody knows everybody in lacrosse, and Cornell, Penn State, there's a lot of things ringing there. You got to start any conversation with Cornell with CJ Kirst. And the thing that really jumped out, I learned my lesson last week. You look at initially you watch and you look at the stats, you're like, oh, CJ Kirst didn't have a huge offensive game. Then you look at the ground balls. You're like, he'll do something, right? And, you've got plenty of other offensive players that can make up that ground. But that's the thing with Kirst. I mean, his scoring speaks for itself, but he's just one of the better all-around players you're going to see.
Absolutely. 10 ground balls, 3 caused turnovers. He can explode for a 7, 8, 9, 10 goal outing. Their attack is best in the country. Their offense, number 1 scoring offense in the country, number 1 shooting percentage in the country, number 1 in terms of assists per game in the country. If you're thinking about Penn State, to me, I see balance. So this is offense versus balance. Penn State's really solid at all levels. You saw that, I thought, in their win over Notre Dame, where they fell behind. They've got a veteran senior class. That's maybe one thing I kind of missed covering that game. They have about 6 or 7 key senior contributors. That used to be a prerequisite for winning games on championship weekend. I used to follow the team with the best senior class. Penn State probably has the best senior class of the teams in this year's championship weekend. And Tambo can scheme it up. They've got enough weapons on offense to score. The question is, can they hold Cornell? Cornell's only been held below 12 goals once this year, and that was in that win over Dartmouth. Cornell's going to get to 12. Question is, can Penn State get to 13? And if Jack Cascadden is winning faceoffs for Cornell and Wyatt Nust is making stops, the answer there would be no.
I mentioned this to Patrick Stevens a little bit, Quint. I had him on the pod earlier this week. I've seen a lot of great attackmen in my day, but Ryan Goldstein is one of the most unique ones, and I think his size is part of this. He slithers on that crease. I don't think I've seen anybody, and if there's people better than this, he's on the short list, that have control around the crease than Ryan Goldstein. It's almost as if there's an electric fence on that thing, and
I
he's
was going to
wearing
say, he
like
reminds me of
yeah,
a bank robber.
yeah.
The way he's able to, the way he's able to
He never touches
sneak
it.
in
Yeah.
there through the beams.
Yes, exactly.
With his skinny body, and he can corner when he's covered by big guys. He gives them all sorts of problems. He doesn't engage their bodies, and he runs around them and breaks their ankles. And you sleep on him, and all of a sudden he's sneaking from behind the net and scoring 4 or 5 goals a game. He's a great passer. His eyes are always up. He's become a much better shooter from in tight. That's been his really the biggest growth I've seen from him as a freshman to this year as a sophomore. I love everything he's about. He's a worker. Both his parents are Cornell Hall of Famers. He's a gritty. There's a little bit of grit in there. I don't think that people understand. And he is Robin right now to Batman, CJ Kurse, but I think he's a future Batman, Ryan Goldstein.
And Quint, one last thing for you here. The Final Four is always a great time to kind of look at state of the union of the sport. This is a sport that has seen exponential growth over the years, consistently playing in NFL stadiums in big markets for the Final Four. Of course, the PLL is taking off, and we can go through everything here. Yet there's still little things that kind of annoy me as somebody that's played the sport, loved the sport growing up. Like when you watch you guys do that great job on Selection Sunday, and like, well, we can't put these two teams together because that would be a flight. It's like, oh man, there's still those little things that are like, just when you think the sport has outgrown these things, it hasn't. So going into Final Four weekend, how would you kind of assess like the state of the sport and things that are great to see it grow into, but those little things that they still have to improve on?
I mean, you look at this year, I think it's been a strong year for the Big Ten and the ACC, probably not as good overall, but ACC lacrosse is in a healthy place, as is the Ivy League. It's the other schools I worry about. On a weekly basis, one thing that kind of, annoys me is, like, we got to push attendance. Like, attendance matters. Like, someday athletic directors are going to be sat down with university presidents someday soon, and they're going to say, well, okay, which programs are we going to take off of the docket here? We take getting rid of rowing? Are we going to get rid of men's and women's lacrosse? And like, if lacrosse is not important in that community, there's a chance that we may lose some programs. And with that in mind, we got to promote these games. We got to get people out and fill up stadiums on the local level. Syracuse did a wonderful job this season. Cornell had some nice crowds late in the season. Penn State's done okay. Ohio State, smaller venue. I love it. But I worry about that. And with more games in February, cold weather games are not friendly for fans. And less home key games in late April and May, we've come to a situation where we're kind of our own worst enemy because of the calendar. And championship weekend, as you mentioned, I don't love NFL stadiums. There's an empty third row. Everyone's like, wow, we're in an NFL stadium. There's 30,000 empty seats. Why are we here? We need a medium-sized stadium, an MLS stadium, that we can fill up and generate some need for tickets, generate a buzz for tickets, a secondary market for tickets. Those things, and I think the one tweak, Annapolis has done so well with the quarterfinals. Why not play championship weekend, Memorial Day, but stop it at the semis, have the women there, the D2, D3, and then bring your championship game back a week later at Navy Marine Corps Stadium, a week to promote. Like, we don't get to promote a championship game. We got one day, and we could promote our stories. We could promote our heroes, our villains. And I think the product you'd see on Memorial, on that, with a week's rest, would be superior to the product that we've seen on Memorial Day, because it's just not great lacrosse coming back on one day's rest.
See, we just solved all the sports problems in 3 minutes there.
This is things we've been talking about for 30 years.
But that's
it's so tough to change.
It's been slow progress. Exactly.
The coaches are in their own little world. They have their own. They're kind of running their corporations, and we're just not in alignment as a group with the NCAA to really maximize this product.
Great stuff, Quint. I'm with you on a lot of that there, but we're still going to enjoy some amazing matchups this weekend's Final Four time. Syracuse is back. Can't wait to see you guys in Foxborough and see these games and cover these games, and always appreciate your time and your insight, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you. I hope the Orange travel because those chants when their fan section gets going, "Let's go Orange!" It fires me up. It excites me.
Thanks to Quint Kessenich joining us here on Syracuse Sports. So we've had the whole booth, with the exception of Dana Boyle, who will be on the call for the Final Four National Championship on ESPN2 and ESPN this upcoming weekend. Quint was dead on when it comes to the larger issues in the sport that he mentioned towards the end of the conversation there, but great insight on everything that we talked about, and certainly appreciate his time. We appreciate your time as a Syracuse Sports Insider being a part of this podcast. You get exclusive voice heard on this pod. We don't take comments from social media or anywhere else. We hear from you, our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to this show and to me. You get breaking news from me. You get my first opinions, analysis, insight. What kind of questions do you want me to ask Syracuse players and coaches? Let me know. You just want to shoot the breeze, talk SU sports, let me know. We're coming towards the end of May here. You're like, summer's coming. What are we going to talk about? Guys, there's always stuff to talk about in the Syracuse sports landscape. And before you know it, it'll be football season again. But we've got football recruiting. We've got all kinds of things going on that we'll keep our eyes on. It does, slow down a little bit in the summer. We want you guys to enjoy your summer. Don't get me wrong. But we got some things cooking here on Syracuse Sports. Trust me, we're not going to slow down just because the weather gets warmer, though. Uncle Brent does want to play a little bit of golf, just a little bit of golf, and then we'll get back into everything. But appreciate you subscribing. If it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever the case may be, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you subscribe, especially now that we're getting into the warmer weather. You guys are getting outside and you want to listen and watch this pod at your own pace. That's what we're here for. This is America, Jack. You listen and you watch when you want, but subscribing and following is the best way to keep up with the show. And again, thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders for being a part of our growing community of passionate Syracuse sports fans. If you're going to be in Foxborough for the Final Four and the championship game, hopefully Syracuse is there, right? But if you're going to be there this weekend, shoot me a text. Let me know. Would love to meet up with you guys. Say hello at the stadium, whatever the case may be. Stay in touch as a part of our Syracuse Sports Insider community. You can see it right there on your screen. Join subtext.com/Syracuse Sports. It's just $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse. Less than $1 a week. What a bargain in these days. No tariffs on the Syracuse Sports Insider text line yet, anyway, for now. Just $3.99 a month, but it's 2 weeks free to sign up, try it out, and give it a run here. All right. Thanks to Quint Kessenich. Thanks to you for listening. Let's let our friends at Pop Culture take us out here. You got a little taste of Sorry Jose earlier in the pod. We're going to play the song in its entirety to end the pod today. And you can have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports. Get in touch. You'll see all the information in the show notes, and we'd love to feature your music on a future episode of Syracuse Sports. Thanks for hanging, everybody. It's been great talking lacrosse all week, and we're getting closer and closer to the Final Four.
Gonna blow and the sails are coming and the tides are low. Who knows where the wind is gonna go? Can't see nothing and they're moving in slow. Got a feeling that the truth is near, and the bear to my left is a breeze in my ear. True living is a thing that we take for granted, my friend. Sorry, Jose.